Hey Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you will get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Christian McKenzie, who is a consumer VC. Christian, welcome to the show.
Rex, thanks for having me.
Oh, come on. It's a pleasure to have you on. It's a pleasure also to have another one of our Caribbean individuals on as well, too. Love it. Love the vibes. You know, the Caribbean culture is amazing. I want to kind of get your perspective on it as well, too. But before we dive into all the wonderful things you've been doing and talking about the Caribbean culture, just do me a favor. Just let us know a little bit more about your cultural background and where you grew up.
Yeah, so my dad's Jamaican. He came to the States for school, and that's where he met my mom, who's actually from the South. She's American. And they were in school in New Jersey. And so I lived in New Jersey for a couple of years growing up. We moved a lot, but I would say I identify as a New Yorker because I spent most of my life in New York.
Okay. Now, I've seen on your LinkedIn page, right? I believe it was a LinkedIn page. It was a Jamaican flag. So I know Dad got that. Do you know what part of Jamaica he's from?
He's from St. Mary's.
Oh, yes. You don't know St. Mary's. Big up on itself. Yes, my mother is from Portland, and my father's from St. Lucia, Castro. So whenever I hear there's some island blood on the calls, I'll be like bubbling. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
So talk to me, like, what is like the Jamaican heritage to you? Like, what does it mean to you, and how does that contribute to like your everyday career?
Yeah, I would say it was interesting because I don't know if you experienced this growing up, but like being stateside, and then I'd go to Jamaica for my summers. Jamaica was kind of like, if you don't perform in school, if you don't act right, like we will ship you back to Jamaica. So it's kind of like a very different life from like, you always have hot water and you always have all these like extravagant things you don't need, right? But in Jamaica, it's like my life was bare bones. So it's like you go to Jamaica when you're in trouble, you're acting up, and also to ground you. And so I think, it helped shape my personality. It helped me be more resilient, scrappy, just because I watched my dad's journey as he grew up. And I also went back to see, family members and friends, and my godparents lived there. So I think it definitely is a big part of how I identify and my value system.
It's funny when you say that because that's exactly what my parents used to say to me all the time, to my other siblings. So they said, "Look, you keep acting up. We're not even gonna beat you. We just gonna ship you back home to your grandmother."
That's strong enough.
Right. And that right there kind of was like, just beat me.
Right.
I take the beat. But they're like, no. We're gonna send you back home. But let's think about that. If they were to tell us that now, deuces, send me back.
Right. I would take it. I would take it. I don't know if you've seen this TV show Severance or shows like this about like a dystopian society, but I just kind of feel like they're very different cultures, right? So it's like, I feel like when I'm here, I have more extreme extravagances, but they're so expensive to even want them. And then when I'm there, it's like, I don't have as extreme extravagances, but you're happy with wherever you are. I would happily take the beach and the mangoes, you know what I mean? And the nice weather.
Don't talk about the mangoes.
Right. The like sad little apartment and the sad little neighborhood with the gloomy weather, just to be like, oh, you in New York. Oh, you in a major city. Like,
but that's
the Jamaican, it doesn't impress me,
But that's the American dream. Right. A lot of individuals, it obviously was the American dream for our parents and our grandparents, maybe not for us now. Right.
Yeah.
But there was a moment in time. And I want to kind of ask you this next question. Like, how was it like growing up in an immigrant household and preparing for like your educational path? Because obviously, if you messed up, you were going back home. Right.
Yeah.
But like when it came to education, like how was that? Did you feel the pressure?
Yeah, my parents were super strict. They were both preachers. And my dad was ex-military, like
Oh,
Caribbean
you had
military, went to
three things.
UE, came here for grad school. Like, so he wasn't playing games. He's like,
Mm.
you came here to be successful. I don't care about friends. I don't care about parties. I don't care about clubs. You want to go to prom? Why? You're missing the point.
We're not spending money.
No, I brought you here to be a nerdy student and you getting distracted with all these other things. You want to get your hair done? Why? You want to get fancy clothes? Why? Like, so no, he was not about to let me mess up all the sacrifices he made to come here. And so it was all about academics. And if I finished my homework in a timely fashion, he gave me additional homework that he just made up. So there's no motivation to even like do my homework in advance. I was just
Your
like,
father
all
was
right,
the ad. He was the adjunct.
basically, he's like, let me take exactly the amount of days it takes to do this project so I don't get the additional homework. Because he's like, you want to watch TV? No, you can't have TV. So yeah, it was a big deal in my household. We were not allowed to have fun time or TV time. It was like all about schoolwork, which I credit to him, right? It makes me very organized and it led to my success today. But yeah, it was strict for sure.
Yeah, I could only imagine what that because remember you said military, Caribbean, and a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
All three of them know how to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And we talking about lectures on lectures.
Oh my gosh.
So the fact that you finished and you were so studious, you finished your work, and he's like, no, you still got more homework.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Exactly.
you know, at that point in time in our lives, you know, we were like, this is crazy. Like, why are you trying to do more when we don't need to? But it was because they understood the value of not just doing just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Understood the value of going an extra step further, going past the finish line, not running to the finish line, but running past that finish line. And subliminally, it helped us out, you know, as we got into our careers and stuff like that, as we moved on. Did you have like any family members as like mentors? I know your father and mother was definitely a mentor, but like anyone that provided you with like a blueprint for like the career that you were moving into?
That I don't know because so I have kind of like an untraditional career, it's upsetting to my parents, but I don't know if anyone in my family did. I think I had to go outside of my social circle to find those mentors, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. And was it easy finding role models? This is something that a lot of our guests have been on the show. They said a lot of their career advancement took place once they found mentors and coaches. They were afraid at one point to actually make those connections, whether because of their language barrier or whether it be because they felt like they just didn't fit in. Did you find those obstacles as well?
I would say definitely. I think I had a girlfriend in grad school who I didn't even know this concept. She's Indian and American, and she identifies as a third culture kid because you're not fully American, you're not fully like Jamaican or wherever your parents are from. You like built your own culture in your household. So like when I was a kid, my dad didn't allow me to have American friends. So he's like, I want you to have my values. Like we're Jamaicans, we're not Americans. I mean, my mom's American, but he was, it was a traditional household, right? So he's like, I need you to have I need you to have Jamaican values. I need to run in those circles. And so I think those are people who I think our people are encouraged to get very traditional jobs. And I don't have a traditional job. And so I had to go outside of that and learn that. And so I think culturally, it was hard to relate to people who weren't also children of immigrants because they had very a different set of rules, right? I think that, like immigrant culture in general, right? It's like live or die kind of thinking, right? Like I sacrificed so much to come here. You're not going to give us a reason to go back. And so like, I'm going to give you no opportunity to mess that up. So I think that was not where I was going to thrive with my creative meets finance career. I think I had and that's part of the reason I have a Jamaican flag on my LinkedIn page, right? Because I'm trying to connect with people that culture I probably have more in common with. And I think that little things like that led me to like my tribe, right? Like I get a ton of questions about being Jamaican and I say it all the time. And I'm not trying to do it in a J-Lo way where it's like, oh, I'm so street, I'm so hood. I wasn't. I'm doing it in a way,
from the block.
right? I'm doing it in a way. It's like I am Jamaican. My immigrant story came with some privileges, right? My dad came here for school. Like he always had papers. Like that's a very different journey than a lot of my friends and family members. But I think being upfront and honest about that and some of maybe cultural differences or nuances I might not get, people that endears people more than perpetrating or pretending you get it or pretending you fit in a certain space that you might not, you know?
I see. I see. And I commend you in regards to that flag. It's an honor to see that because I remember when LinkedIn came out, I didn't really see a lot of that.
Yeah.
I didn't see people putting up their flag and representing where they're from. It might have the only way of representing where they're from was in their educational background. I went to Columbia, I went to Harvard, I went to Yale, but there's so much history and legacy before we even got there, right?
Yep.
And our culture comes first. That's like our first form of education, right? Knowing, and it kind of gives you a sense of groundedness within you to find out who you are. So when I see things like that on people's profiles, I'm always like, I'm even curious to know where the flag is.
Oh.
There's so many places in the world, right? So I'm out here like trying to get my phone out on the screen and be like, all right, Alexa, do me a favor. Tell me what flag is this?
Oh, yeah.
That's so I know. So when I hit them up or if I ever see them in passing, I'm like, oh, you're from, hey, And I think that's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like you said, you get a couple of questions and some people just connect to you because they're like, oh, I just came from there. And it's like, and they get to see our culture and more importantly, Jamaica in a sense as not just the things that you see in the tabloids, but an actual physical being who's professional, who's outgoing, understanding, loving. They're like, okay, I make a connection versus sometimes what the media does sometimes to a lot of these emotions.
Yeah. Or like what happened with the Bob Marley movie. We were told, oh, I couldn't find enough Jamaicans to be in it. I was like, what? Okay.
One love.
I don't mean to derail the conversation, but
no. But we having conversation. That's what it's all about. And I appreciate you dropping them little things there. What was like going back to it, but like what was like your first job out of college, right? So you're in college, you get in this educational background. Your father's probably still providing you with extra homework. Not even extra credit.
Basically. Yeah. Judging all my decisions.
That first job experience.
So my first job was as an assistant buyer at Macy's in New York. I always loved fashion. I always wanted to be in New York City and, be at Fashion Week, be at the shows. And I think my intention was to merge kind of like my interest in entrepreneurship, like because, retail buyer selects the brands that go in the store. So I was interested in like scouting brands to go in the store, but just like being a part of the industry and seeing like what would be the best fit for me. So that was something, when the parents call, they're like, okay, my friends are coming over. What do you do again? And okay, so this pays money. Okay, I got it. Like that was always the kind of like the call I would always get when I had that role. Yeah.
You're coming to Thanksgiving dinner? Before you come here, let me know exactly how much you made last year. So when I tell you members.
Exactly.
My daughter, and mind you, now at that point in time, they're like, my daughter over here. It's like I felt like I was like Vanna White, coming out.
They're like, they were like putting it.
Hey, this is my son. You know what he does? He works in sales and marketing. And everyone's like, wow, that sounds so big. That's not just a sales rep. He's sales and marketing director.
I want to call us toxic, but I don't because I get it. But like, yes, that was like what mattered. Like, what is the resume? Not are you happy? Not did you find friends? Do you live in a safe neighborhood that's not a roach infested apartment? No.
Did you find your soulmate? No.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. There was sometimes those dinners were very uncomfortable at times, especially when you're the only one that understands what you really do.
They're like, oh, okay. So like the commercials on TV, you work on those. I was like, no, I don't. What? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, so Macy's, right? This on 34th?
Yep.
Shout out to Hero Square. No.
Yep, that's the area, Hero Square. Yep.
Yeah,
so the corporate office is above the store.
Yes. I did love a good Macy's during Christmas time. The windows flooded. My parents used to drive. We used to go down there just to watch that. right?
Yep.
Just go. I mean, we were window shopping. I don't even know what we were buying, but we just had to go see these
I
mannequins
know.
in
New
the
York's so
trains.
good at that.
It was a moment. I was like 10, 11, watching those going down there. It was like a day. It was like going to the zoo. We
Did you
walked
ever
the
go to the
whole block.
parade?
Oh yeah, definitely had to go
Okay.
to the parade. I'm just wondering at this point in time, like, what was some of like the lessons you learned? I mean, being in Macy's, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful location, beautiful store. It's very historical as well, right?
Yep. hmm
Like what were like some of the lessons you learned while working in Macy's, and like how did that like influence you in your decision of like going back to grad school?
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed about Macy's at the time, I didn't know that it was just like dumb luck, right? Macy's was recruiting when I was a student at Spelman, so I just put my name on like a clipboard. I didn't know it was going to lead to what it led to, right? Got recruited because I came down to Atlanta to recruit students, and at the time I was taking some fashion class at Clark Atlanta. And so in my head, it was like, oh, this is a stepping stone to like something crazy like fashion designer or supermodel or something. I like didn't
Mhm.
really know the industry the way I know it now. And what I say dumb luck because Macy's has an excellent training program. So
Yeah,
before you start your
I
corporate
imagine.
job, you're in like a merchant analyst training program. I think that was like under a year that it lasted. And so they take you from you work the sales floor with the sales managers because I mean, if you don't have excellent salespeople, you can't stay in business. You're learning the systems, right? So like the retail math, you're learning like how we make buys, what our seasons look like just understanding the calendar because as a kid, your calendar sort centers on like spring break, summer break, Christmas,
Yeah,
right? But
that's
as
right.
like
That's right.
a corporate employee, like no, like Christmas is when you work the most. Thanksgiving is when you work the most because that's when the sales come in. So you don't take vacation from Thanksgiving to Christmas in retail. Like you are there
Yeah,
every day, making sure every ad goes out the way it's supposed to, every event activation. So just learning like the basics of being an adult, the basics of the job. I think that was amazing. I don't think Macy's is known for having one of the strongest training programs. So that was great. And I also think I made a ton of mistakes. I thought I was going to come to New York and I was going to club at night. I was free, right? My parents weren't
yeah. They weren't.
having this
Your father
super
wasn't giving you
strict
homework.
environment, right? So I'm living in Brooklyn. I picked Crown Heights. I could be near all the patty shops I loved. Like I'm commuting to Manhattan. I'm going out at night, and that was not meshing with my corporate life. I get sleepy
You got
during the day. I
that's
wasn't
right.
eating
That's right.
right. So just like how much the decisions I made outside of work were affecting me as an adult. I think those just basic life skills I was learning. And then just the corporate environment. It's a huge corporation. Like corporate politics are important. So like if you don't have friends in the building, you can't keep a job. And when I say friends, like people who are your advocates, people who are your mentors, people who, if the
Yeah,
company goes through layoffs or, they're considering who to promote, those are the people that throw your names in the hat, not just your pure output.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like I learned that trial by fire. So
As we all do.
half of that being
Yeah.
my age, right, and being young, and half of that being the company that I chose. But it was a amazing crash course for
And
sure.
I could relate because I worked at the Disney store, and this is when the
Mm-hmm.
Disney store was the biggest Disney store I believe, in the country,
I used to
and it
love the
was on.
Disney store.
I used to be in it, and the training that they had to understand every character, all the sales, and like you said, and you brought it back to me. My sales director for the region was like, "I want you guys to know we make the most amount of sales during Thanksgiving and Christmas." And I used to be like, "Guys, that's day off.
Yeah.
What do y'all talk about? Like, I don't even know how we condoning this right now."
Yeah.
But at a young age, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. But then they were like, "There's commission. If the store does good, everyone gets a bonus." And I'm like, "All right, everyone, all hands on deck."
Yeah.
All hands on
Exactly.
deck.
I'm on board.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about money because that was something our parents had kind of been said to us. They were like, "Look, we want you to get a good job so you get paid well,
Mhm.
right?" It wasn't like, "We want you to get a good job so you can be happy."
Right.
Right? It's a
Right.
totally different
That
ballgame.
nuance, that took a while to learn,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Nowadays, they might say that. They might be like, "Honey, I just want you to be happy now." Like, because they got older. and their mentality and thought process and ideas kind of change based off of what we were doing as well.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously society, you know, there's a lot of things with mental health now, and there was before then too. It's just more open.
Yep.
So now our parents are like, wait, hold up. I don't know if I want my daughter working 40 plus hours. Give her 20 and make the same amount of money. Crazy. It's crazy. What was the reasoning behind your decision and going back to grad school? Like, how did that help you in your professional trajectory?
Yeah, I think I have used going back to school because I've done it more than once to pivot. I think it's a easy story to tell, you know. And I think especially having, you know, being the child of an immigrant, I felt like I hadn't seen the world. I haven't traveled, you know, how do you know that you love America if you've never permanently lived anywhere else? So there are a ton of factors that led to that. And at the time, you know, I think being in retail, being in fashion, things have changed, right? So I
Yeah.
think before social media had the stronghold that it does on society, trends would come from the top down. So if a buyer bought something, people normally bought it. They're just like, oh, this must be trendy because you put it on your sales floor. You felt, you know, you felt so strongly about it that you made it the front cover of your catalog, right? But that's changed, right? With Twitter outing people, designers who knock off the streets, who knock off independent artists. I think a lot of the trends come from the streets up, right? So at the time, I just I knew that a lot of fashion trends came from Europe, and I felt like I needed to be there to really understand it through and through. So I applied to London College of Fashion, partly to live in Europe for a couple of years, and partly just to make sure I understood the basics of it, because I think Macy's, honestly, again, I think it was just like dumb luck. Like I got into an amazing position, amazing city straight out of school. That's not everyone's story. And I was like, I just want to make sure I know everything, know what all the options are, and that I pick the right thing for me and see what doors it could open.
Yeah. And you said you was in Atlanta, Spelman, you said?
Yeah, I went to Spelman for undergrad.
Yeah, and then you went up to London.
Yep. And then I went to London College of Fashion for my first master's.
Second master's is where?
NYU. Oh, you're so sweet.
I'm just going to clap because that's 3 different places.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, forget the education, just the fact that you were able, because you know, some people, they stay at one school, top to bottom or bottom to top. But you're like, you know what, let me get, and so I know moving around helps you to pick up other skill sets and also pick up different thought processes as well.
Yeah, you know, cultural literacy is huge.
Yeah, massive. And that makes you more valuable at any corporation, any type of team that you're on. Now, a thing that happens, obviously you're working at Macy's, right? Macy's corporate, you know, you're connecting. There's a lot of things in corporate that people love, and there's a lot of things in corporate that people just don't love. Like when you're dealing with like people who are very influential, people who are very powerful, obviously people within money and stuff like that. You know, what would you say is like one of the most important things you could suggest to someone trying to navigate in an office that has like a whole bunch of like politics?
Yeah. You know, every office is different. I would say, you know, especially having worked like retail and big tech and, you know, finance, they all are very different. I would say I would spend 50% of your time understanding the corporate politics part of it and executing on that. I think a lot of people, at least I can speak for me, when I went to a role, I was like, well, if I learned the role, I'm good. And like, nope, that's just the bare minimum to not get fired. If you want to stay here, if you want to succeed here, if you want to be the head of a committee or, you know, launch your own thing, like people have to like you, right? So, and not like you dress well or you say nice things, like, no, they believe that you're intelligent. They believe that you're focused. They believe that you're bringing new ideas to the table. And that takes a lot, right? That means you read the news, the trade publications. That means like when someone's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run quickly to, you know, this conference. Do you want to come? Yes, is the answer. You don't know how you're going to pay for it. You don't have, you know, lift money. Like you just figure it out.
True.
So I think I didn't do that at first. I do that now. Is like learn like what's important to the team. If what's important is that I had a girlfriend, her boss asked her to go jogging with her once a week because they both lived in Harlem. She had no interest in jogging or interest in hanging out with this boss outside of work. But she knew if she said no, the boss would be like, "Oh, you're like dissing me. You're like you're
Yeah.
rejecting me, and that's going to affect my decisions when I get to work." So she just said yes, and would begrudgingly come back to me and say, "Oh, I had to go on a jog this morning because the boss asked me to go on the jog." But it's like, what does it hurt you to go on a jog if it's going to make sure you have a little bit of job security versus other people?
And it's what you're willing to do. But sometimes people lose themselves in that
Yeah.
environment. They're like, you know what, I'll do anything. Now there's a cutoff at some point in time.
Yeah.
But that cutoff is different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
A jog in the park, hey, look, I'm actually getting a workout at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But at the
probably
same
getting
time,
some intel.
yeah. Hey, there's a new position open in San Francisco. You should hey, I'm on the internet tonight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Typing away, looking for that position, because it's important to know. And again, closed mouths don't get fed, as they would always say in the Bronx, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to be connected to those individuals, but obviously keeping your distance in regards to that politics, because it does get a little crazy at times. Now, VC,
Mm-hmm.
right? The title VC. Now, there's a lot of people online right now that are probably questioning and saying, Paul, please ask this question. What is VC? What does it actually mean? And what do you actually do? For the folks that don't know. And talk about what was one of the first experiences moving into VC.
Yeah. So I think I decided, years ago that I was interested in venture capital. I think it's more buzzy now than it was when I decided to do it. But venture capital really is it's an asset class of finance. So there's multiple types of finance, right? There's the stock market, right? You might have a retirement account in the stock market. There's making individual investments in businesses, right? Your boy might open a barber shop, you give him a check. And then there's a private equity, there's a growth fund. So that's like making bigger buys, like when someone announces, I'm going to acquire a major corporation. And so venture capital is the slither of that, where you're investing in high growth companies. So these would be something, usually a tech company, doesn't have to be, but it's usually a tech company, like a Facebook, right? A Meta,
Meta.
like a Pinterest, those are the type of companies that seek venture capital. And the reason that it exists is that, I think a lot of small businesses, like a mom and pop shop, they might go for a loan, right? A bank loan. Traditional bank loan, you take out money, you pay them back, they get interest on that loan. That's how they make their money. But that kind of financial product might not work for your business if you're scaling to 1 million users, right? You need money today.
True.
You probably don't have enough liquid capital to pay back a loan. So you need money that the way venture capital works is someone gives you money for equity in your company. And so it's going to be if the company does well, it's a long time before that kind of needs to be made whole. And the goal is they take a percentage of your company. Hopefully your company does well so they can make back that money and then some. So I think I hope that was a clear
No, that's good.
answer.
It's a great thing for anyone who has a startup company or someone looking to build something very big, to find those types of individuals. But obviously you got to find the right VC. Yeah. Right. It's not like everyone is, just because someone has money or someone has the knowledge to help grow your business doesn't mean that they're the best person for it. Right.
Correct.
So it does take interviews and talking. No, that's just what I was going to say. It just takes some time, not to rush into it.
Yeah. And to add on to what you said, I think a lot of people, let's talk about Me Too, or let's talk about a lot of people that are being outed for their previous behavior, that can totally affect your company. So it's even if someone is wealthy, doesn't mean you need to rock out with them, because that actually could hurt your business being associated with them. So to your point, taking the interviews, doing your diligence on
do
that
your research.
person that you take money from, don't take it because it's easy money. Make sure it's the right money for you.
Yeah. And you don't want to be owing back a bad loan.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there are some bad loans out there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the exact stats, right? But this is something I want to kind of, talk about a little bit with you. 5% maybe, right, are Black women VCs.
Oh, it's under 2%.
Under 2%. Oh, see, look at that. Better than I would right there.
Yep.
So under 2% is Black and brown women. How do you Like, do you feel the pressure from something like that, or how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's disheartening, definitely. I think that's a that can be a lengthy conversation or short conversation, but I think, when there's certain groups that have the majority of the capital, right? Other groups have to apply to work for them to get access to that capital. And this is a very niche industry. It's, an industry that's not regulated or monitored in the way that other industries are, right? Some legislation is coming down over time. But it really was a cottage industry out of the West Coast with wealthy white guys who said, hey, there's certain things we want to invest in. We want to invest in our friends. We're launching really cool things. How do we do that differently? Because they can't go to a bank to launch this, right? They can't crowd fund to launch something. They need millions of
Sure.
dollars and very quickly. So
Yeah.
I think just with the history of this country, and where the wealth sits, I think those factors are at play. And so it is it. I don't want to say it is what it is, but the best thing we can do is just get in there and try to change those stats.
Mm. And it's obviously under 2%. That seems like a very long time
Yeah,
to even see the needle even move just an inch, right? But I know the listeners, obviously our Zaka community, and even individuals like myself, greatly appreciate you for trying to move that needle. And I know every day you go to work, every day you show up, every day you provide the best version of you, that needle slightly moves over to the other side. So it might take some more time, right, to
yeah,
get maybe into 5%. But having individuals like you speaking of your journey and your experience helps other VCs or future VCs move in this direction. What would you say is like maybe three top qualities that you would need to have to be a great VC?
I would say you definitely need to be like genuinely interested in learning. It's not like a desk job. It's not like a job where it's like you learn it and now you're just executing and trying to like grow the ladder.
Mm,
Like you can never know everything with venture because the industry moves so quickly. So it's like so for me, I'm passionate about investing in consumer tech and consumer products. Um, and those move quickly. So it's like, let's
true.
say 10 years ago, everybody wanted like a cool soda, right? Or great liquor. Now everyone's like, I'm trying to get healthy, right? I want you to cut the sugar. I might want to drink a
Yeah.
spiritless cocktail. Like I want CBD gummies. Like I have to keep up with that and not just rely on like, oh, it was in my Instagram feed. It must be big. Like I actually need to write white papers
That
and
is
back
some
up
people
those
nowadays.
decisions. Right. I have like, so when I write an investment memo, I mean, we're talking about a 10-page deep dive into like a slither of what's happening in society. Like I might write one on a restaurant chain, I might write one on a footwear brand, but it's like I have to know everything that's happening in footwear to make sure that that was a good decision. And so it's like if you don't naturally love reading, if you don't like naturally love researching, it might be really difficult to keep up with the pace of venture because it's just kind of so different, I think. You
Mm-hmm.
said three qualities. So the learning.
Yeah, now you go. You good?
um, I would say too, just having like being comfortable with like finances. There's
True.
people that like,
That's got to be a big one.
yeah, there's people that are just kind of like gloss over when I want to talk. I've always loved finance since I was like a little kid. I like in an embarrassing way would talk about it with my friends and they would never come over and play with me again. So you
You
have
would
to
have won in
have
Monopoly.
right, like
You would have won in Monopoly. There's always that one
exactly.
person in Monopoly that knows how to move the needle to the other side. Everyone else is just trying to move the pieces. You're like, no, you're gonna have to pay rent on that, please.
Yeah, I have a strategy and yep, don't skip over my property. So I think you have to be comfortable with it. Like you can't, even if you're scared, like just play around with it, right? Like pull up some spreadsheets, like organize your finances, help your parents with your finances. Like you might, my journey was from retail to here, right? Like it
Yeah.
wasn't something I just like instinctively knew. I just knew I had an interest in it. So just like keeping up those skills. And I would say lastly, I think networking is key. I think getting access to the best deals, getting access to entrepreneurs who are building really interesting things, like you have to have that network. You can't just, people aren't going to just hand you deals and be like, hey, here's something for you to work on. They'll be like, hey, who have you met? Who'd you meet over the weekend? Who could we invest
Yeah.
in? They're going to ask you that. If you're not a networker, if you're not meeting those people,
Yeah.
and no one said you have to go out and do it, maybe LinkedIn is your lane, right? Like maybe social
Thank
media.
you. Thank you.
You find interesting entrepreneurs on Twitter, like that's fine, but you have to network to kind of keep your like pipeline, I guess, of deals. So I say those are the things you need baseline to like really make it.
I do like the one. I mean, all three were amazing in regards to the way you broken it down. But I do like the networking one because, and I just the reason why is because whenever I like when there's similarities in regards to the conversations that I'm having with people, the guests that come on, a lot of them have talked about networking. Networking really kind of got them to some of their to leverage themselves, right? They're in one person left their job, went to a networking event, and was able to get hired by the job that they really wanted, just because
Oh,
they went to an
wow.
event. So it's things like that that happen that, you never know it's gonna happen unless you obviously put yourself out there. But you gotta come with your A game,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Sometimes you got one opportunity, to make that happen, and you just gotta, put your best foot forward. How do you like leverage being from having like a southern culture to you, but then also having a Jamaican culture in you? How do you advantage it? How do you use that as an advantage in your industry? Are you on the phone talking patois to these people?
Once in a while, my practice is not the best. Once in a while, but I will say I think trying to find common ground is easier when you have like a more diverse background. And when I say diverse, I mean like there's diversity in the Black community, right? So I think sometimes I'm able to pull from people like, oh, you're from down south. I actually went to school there. Or if people say, oh, I'm child of an immigrant, I'm a child of an immigrant too. I think it helps us like just establishing a connection. Because I
Mm,
think at the end of the day, when I'm networking, I think a lot of people just want to feel seen and feel heard, right? And it doesn't take a lot to make someone feel that way, right? Like, the simple things like put your phone down when you're having a conversation, like don't have it in your face and be reading it and
yeah,
trying to connect with somebody, or like if you're looking around the room when someone's trying to say something to you like that's a little bit of sign of disrespect in my opinion. So they're just going to lose interest and walk away, right? You could have lost yourself a job or lost yourself a client. So I think just like having certain like cultural norms, I think like my American family and my Jamaican family are very much so about respect and very much so about like this is how you show up in the world. And I
mm,
think people that are into that, it resonates with them. It might not
mm,
be
mm,
everybody's flavor, but I think it's easy to establish a relationship when you know who you are and you can find a common ground.
mm. And could you talk to us a little bit more about like your current role, right? I know we were kind of touching base on the VC
Yeah.
stuff, but your current role and like any other endeavors that you're involved in.
Yeah. So I'm a multiple hat wearing person that just, fits being a
I
Jamaican, I guess.
I could see right
Um,
now you got one of them on.
oh, oh my gosh.
This must be the fashion hat. This must be the
Oh my
fashion. I got you.
oh my gosh. So right now I am an angel investor and I'm an advisor to multiple startups that I've been working with for a very long time, which I'm super excited about. And so I angel invest through deals that I find in my network. And then the startups that I support are just founders I've been working with for a few years, and they're ready to scale and they're ready to expand into different states, different markets, different corporations. And so I'm really enjoying the work. And I think being in VC in general allows you to watch someone grow and see if you'd want to work with them one day
Yeah.
versus like a major corporation just watching the press, right? You're like, oh, that feels cool, but you don't actually know the team. Like I've had the chance to watch these entrepreneurs like level up over the past few years. And so it's an honor to be asked to work with so many teams.
And then what is like your proudest accomplishment? You've done a lot. You've traveled a lot too,
Oh,
right?
wow. My proudest accomplishment.
And also why, right? I know some people like, oh, my prize is like, I got promoted, but why?
Hmm. I don't know if I'm proud of work stuff. I think I'm more proud of stuff I do personally. So I don't know if I have
Okay,
a great answer.
drop that. Let's go because personal growth is also in like just self care is big. I started doing self-care. I started, going to the gym. I started work. Those things are important as well too.
Yeah.
We don't have to sound like our parents right now and be like, all right, I finally got the raise I wanted. I finally got that office overlooking the Midtown Manhattan. Nah, it's other things that we also value in our lives. So like a proudest accomplishment.
Okay. So I would say, I say this to my friends all the time. I don't know if I'm an underachiever or an overachiever, but I've accomplished 99% of my career goals. And I think that's the Jamaican workaholic in me. I think I moved pretty fast. And so now I'm focused on, what personal goals you want to hit. And, I buried both my parents, right? And so their legacy is something that's, thank you. Something that sits in my head, but isn't like live like it used to be. And so I've had to make new communities, right? Because you always need people to like support you and give you
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
And my godparents that were given to me at birth are Jamaican, and one is living and one is passed. And so I've been basically adopting parents. And so my parents, they met in school, and there was a woman they went to school with that saw like their whole love story, saw them grow up and get careers and start a family. And I just basically started hanging out with her, and public people are like, well, is this your aunt? Is this your mom? So I started just calling her my godmother. Like I didn't get her
Okay.
permission. I just started calling her my godmother. She lives in Harlem and she's an executive. It makes me proud every day. And it just stuck. And she's like, no, I'm completely cool with that. And I think I got the godmother, goddaughter relationship to a point where it's like we go on trips, I visit her for the holidays. I think that was huge.
Did we go to Jamaica?
No, she's ready for Jamaica. She's American. That's a whole different hustle.
No. We need the mango tree. We need some passion fruit.
We went to Abu Dhabi, and that was fantastic.
I'll give you that.
And so I'm working up to the next trip. But I think feeling comfortable with people that I didn't grow up with and establishing new relationships and new community and pouring into people and allowing them to pour into you was actually a new thing that I accomplished. So that's what I would say is my most recent and proudest moment.
Pouring to me, pouring to you. That's the type of circle you want to be involved in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the circle that our parents gave to us at home, even though it might have been a little bit, they don't understand us, but they were actually pouring into us and we were also pouring into them. Last thing, let me say that. First off, this interview has been amazing. I love your energy, love your vibe, and I love the hat that you're wearing right now.
Thanks. We'll have to get you one.
You know what I'm saying? I might have to do a little something, right? But one of my last questions to you is just like, what advice would you give to like an immigrant professional who's looking to follow the same career path as you?
Let's see. I would say that I had to divorce the identity I was given to dream bigger. So not that I don't identify with who I am, but I have an executive coach, and he asked me once, what if someone never told you that you were a Black woman? And I said, what do you mean? Like, that's so ingrained in me. I'm a Black woman, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no. How is it limiting you? Like every day. And what I thought about was like, okay, when I think about being a Black woman in America, I think about like census data, like the statistics say we're super educated, right? We're wealthy. We're single, right? We're not getting married like other groups. And I was like, okay, well, I was benchmarking how well I was doing based on the media and census data, which is wild because the media doesn't have my best interest in mind.
No. We're not going to trust that.
Right.
Don't turn that TV on.
It was subconscious, right? It was like inputs from whatever. I don't know why I made that decision and saw it through. And so I think part of being an immigrant, right? You're like, okay, I came here to be like a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Like I didn't come here to like find myself or like lean into my hobbies. And it's just like, I would say just like challenge like the rules, right? Like just be open to being like, if you want to be design hats. Like if you, know what I mean?
And
like
do it
you
well.
Find a way to make it work. And whether you have to work 3 jobs or whether, that's your passion, but before it's your full-time job, I would say like, find a way to divorce like what you think you should be as an immigrant or a child of an immigrant and just go with it. I think that was the thing that was a like a turning point for me when I was able to do that exercise.
Mhm.
And I think haven't looked back and my success has been like explosive. Before I felt like I was taking steps, but now I'm just like, I can't even control the opportunities I'm
Yeah, it's
getting.
coming your way.
It's the
It,
control. So that
I,
was the moment for me.
I could only imagine how that moment in time, especially when you said you had to bury your parents, right? The divorcing the old you kind of means a little bit of like the things that they kind of gave to you, saying, "Well, you do it only this way," right?
Yeah.
But our parents only wanted the best for us at the end of the day. They didn't know any better in regards to that. The better, like the best for ourselves, could be A and B and also C at the same time.
Yeah.
But they would be definitely, and I know they are very proud of you and all the work you've done and the lives and the people you've connected with, right? And again, I know it's only 2%, less than 2%, but your energy will increase that to 5 and 10. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more Black and brown people, women, men, of color, doing exactly what you're doing. And I know this interview right here is going to hopefully help a lot of individuals that are looking to join in that path as well.
I hope so.
Right. And I wanted to say thank you again for just taking the time to just be here with us and be present on the Zaka platform. Our goal is really just to kind of, like I said earlier, just to create a vulnerable and positive safe space. And your journey, your story is going to add to that, to the many more stories to come and the stories that have come before you. So thank you, Chris, for just being present and just sharing it. I mean, again, your vibe is real. You don't know sister in me after this beat yourself up on thing. You see?
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And I want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Chris, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcasts.